some clarity to this matter that is causing a lot of controversy in many quarters. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. What is the context, really? Why will the Ministry of Education want to change the uniform of some schools in the country?
Good evening, Salom, and thank you for the opportunity to use your platform to address this matter, of course, for the consumption of Ghanaians. So, if you recall, just last Tuesday, the Ministry of Education held a symposium dubbed the Free Senior High School Story. And of course, it was an opportunity for all stakeholders to meet and interact about the impact of the free senior high school policy. So the Minister for Education, Dr. Oseduchum, was equally scheduled to speak at that forum or symposium. And of course, after, outlining some of the initiatives or giving an overview of the whole free senior high school program, he also took a bite at the interventions that the Ministry of Education has undertaken at the public basic schools. But Salom, even before proceeding with that, it is important to also highlight that at every point where the minister has spoken, he's made several admissions that the public basic schools, particularly the junior high school level, has always been the weakest link within the education sector. So he took the opportunity to address the stakeholders and, in a larger extent, all Ghanaians about some of the interventions and programs that has been initiated at the public basic schools level. To that effect, he showed videos about the 21st century model junior high schools. And the model junior high schools, currently there have been a number of them, 10 of them across the length and breadth of the country. And the whole idea is that, for instance, if you go to, a town like, say, Gov't, instead of having about, let's say, 11, 12, 15 junior high schools who may not necessarily have science laboratories and other, teaching and learning materials or infrastructure, what we do is that we build one bigger one for them and provide all the facilities, sometimes even with a bus, so that students will be able to access. And the context was that after introducing these 21st century model high schools, we also want to take that initiative or take that step to also facelift the whole basic education system or arrangement. So based on that, what the minister mentioned was that we also have to look at rebranding or repackaging basic education to make it more attractive. And for that matter, if you, for instance, initially we painted the old buildings brown and yellow. This time around, we need to get more brighter colors. So this time we painted these buildings white and blue. So for emphasis sake, in terms of the painting, it is not as though we are going to paint all existing public basic schools. No, that is not the case. We're only, emphasis is made on the newly constructed 21st century model junior high schools. And of course, he also made a point about, the lack of general confidence by Ghanaians and the fact that Ghanaians ordinarily are not willing to associate with the public basic schools because we feel, in terms of quality, it's not good. And so after these steps has been taken to uplift it, we also have to, take steps to give it a more appealing outlook by also introducing, nicer uniforms there. So with regards to the uniforms too, specific emphasis was laid upon the 21st century model high schools as a way of, letting Ghanaians know that a change is coming. If you recall, he kept repeating, transformation has come, and there will be a time where Ghanaians will queue to look for admission in a public basic school. So for me, like you rightly asked, what is the context? I believe that when the context is properly laid, Ghanaians should be able to understand that, one, we're not talking about changing the uniforms for all public basic schools, but we're only referring to the newly constructed public basic schools. Again, we're also not talking about repainting existing ones, because, what would be the point about repainting an existing school that even in the future you may demolish because it's dilapidated and introduce a new one, which is more convenient and offers an opportunity for students to access all the teaching and learning materials that are necessary. So, I mean, that is the context within which the minister put the whole commentary. But, I mean, I don't want to say it's unfortunate. Maybe from the Ministry of Education outside too, we also needed to do more of the explanation to make Ghanaians better appreciated. But it looks like, I mean, somebody makes a presentation for about 45 minutes to 1 hour, and just a portion less than 3 minutes is interpreted in a way that makes Ghanaians to believe that the ministry we've misplaced our priority and there are more pressing issues to address, and all our interest is to rebrand. And you know, Ghana, as soon as we talk about rebranding, it raises a lot of eyebrows, particularly when you also say you are going to repaint schools. People will be talking about procurement issues and the general mistrust for politicians, where a lot of Ghanaians will feel that somebody is going to benefit. No. Ordinarily, if you build, certainly you are going to paint. So it is just the color that we opted for, brighter colors.
Yes, so very, very well explained. But the point is, these new schools, they are still basic schools, are they not? So, I mean, the fact that they are newly built and all of that shouldn't be the reason why we want to change the uniform. I wonder what the change of uniform really will bring, apart from your talk about confidence, etc. And indeed, I'm not sure the change of uniform is what will bring the confidence if indeed public school people are not confident. I'm not sure it is a uniform. It's deeper than that, is it not?
Oh, yeah, obviously. I mean, to reduce the whole conversation to a uniform, it will be very simplistic. And I agree with you. But you see, the context that I put my response was that we are talking about a 21st century model junior high school. So this is not the usual 6-unit classroom block. No. We are talking about 3-4-story building with a lot of them with about 12 laboratories in it, with public basic schools having a bath, having Prometheum balls, having smart classroom and what have you. So, I mean, certainly, when you undertake such a transformative step, you want to also augment it to have a more appealing outlook. So, yes, the uniform alone will not do the trick. But you see, interestingly, and if we are being very honest to ourselves, the public basic school system, I mean, from time immemorial, nobody want to associate it. Without any disrespect to anyone, but the average, even low-income earner will rather prefer a private basic school rather than saying the daughter or the child, wearing a public basic school shirt to school. So certainly, there is a general lack of trust and lack of confidence for the public basic school. So, yes, it will take a lot of actions, a lot of interventions, a lot of variables have to be changed to be able to make sure that you have a combined effect of what you are looking at. So, yes, I agree with you. It's not necessarily the uniform, but, of course, it begins with a step where you change infrastructure, introduce state-of-the-art infrastructure, make sure that, for instance, you may go to a school where you may have about 5 people with just one teacher. Of course, you may also be looking at a school, for instance, with recently we saw on social media, and you may see about 50, 60 students also with one teacher, whilst a school with 5 students may have about 6 teachers. So why don't you bring all of them under one umbrella? Make sure that you provide all the adequate teachers there, and make sure that they have access to all the relevant teaching and learning materials that are required. Since you are unable to provide all teaching and learning materials to all junior high schools. But if you are bringing, for instance, you are collapsing 15 junior high schools and bringing it into one school, you can. So this is a facelift. And this requires, the nation's attention. This requires a recognition. So it is, the emphasis is not really on the uniform. Like I said, the whole conversation.
Yeah, but we are starting with the uniform, and that's what has caught the attention of people, and that's what is generating all of this. And it's specifically so because recently there was a change of uniform for the basic schools. Of course, I know you and I went to school and we wore the brown uniform. Okay, so we call it Abeni Kukunte or something. You know, we wore that and we're happy with it. I'm not sure it raised issues of confidence, etc. As far as I know, I didn't feel inferior to other people who schooled elsewhere. I mean, it was okay. But when we were changing the uniforms about 3 years ago to the striped ones with the hat on it and all of that, it was the same reason of confidence and inferiority complex, self-esteem, etc. we gave. Here we are introducing a new uniform in the same public space for, albeit a new, you call it 21st century school, you know, and giving the same reason. Why can't students in the public space wear the same uniform? Does it change anything?
Because the problem is still the same. So, I mean, just that the approach to resolving it may be different. And that's how come for us we introduced the infrastructure bit before we are talking about even uniforms. But you see, Salom, there are a lot of things that we see so far, maybe because the proposal is coming from a politician, but not within maybe the technocratic system. But aside that, if you look at, for instance, at the senior high school level, are you aware that every senior high school have its own unique uniform? And that is not a problem in Ghana. I mean, there is this school in Kumasi, I mean, Assem, and just right behind Assem, there is also a Catholic school. These are all government public basic schools. But of course, when it comes to the Catholics, they prefer that they use their independent uniforms. And interestingly, maybe we may have to commission researchers to also look into that. Interestingly, parents prefer, the average Ghanaian parents prefer to take their children to that school. You go to Assem and there are only 5 students from class 1 to class 6. Just because, I mean, it's a public school, the whole perception that public schools are no good. So if you want to transform public schools and you introduce infrastructure, amenities, and development, of course, I mean, we may have our own opinions, but I mean, what a variable like, for instance, the uniform, a white top, and let's say whether black or blue-black trousers, will not be so much of an issue. Particularly when you go to the senior high school level, every school independently selects their uniforms, and parents are very happy about it, and we all want to associate with that. And I mean, Salom, beyond anything, I work within the Ministry of Education, and you are a parent. If we are being very honest to ourselves, how many middle-income earners ordinarily will want to take their children to public basic school? Because
the issue is not with the uniform. The issue, like you've admitted, is deeper than that. So let's start with dealing with those issues. Teacher absenteeism, provision of textbooks, all those things that make the government schools or the public schools not competitive. I think those must be tackled first, rather than seeking to change the form rather than substance.
Shalom, when I spoke about the uniform, it does not necessarily imply that in terms of all the other variables, there has not been any intervention. Then what is the essence of, leadership being at the ministry? People pick their cars, go morning, 6 a.m., but the minister is in office, sometimes you leave the office 10 p.m., and you feel there is nothing going on. So how even this infrastructure, conversation did even come into place? Actually, in terms of all the variables, that's why I said it's not like a linear sequence. All the variables are also constructively being tackled, of which the uniform happens to be a component of it. But you see, like I indicated, if you were in that room and the presentation that was made, every other person will place more premium on the infrastructure development and other key variables that will cause education transformation. Like I indicated, I was speaking to one of your sister stations, and I said that at every point, the media shapes the narrative of the conversation that we have. So it all depends on sometimes where the media shapes the narrative, and more emphasis will be placed there. So for now, nobody is talking about the infrastructure development. Nobody is talking about the fact that our junior high schools are now going to indeed, be redefined and get a true meaning of a high school status. Just like if you go to other jurisdictions, they are
but these are not new, because these are things that the minister and yourself you've spoken about over the period.
You feel the uniform is new.
No, because it's the new thing we've seen, and given the history, the renaming of universities, the change of uniforms 3 years ago, and all of that, it raises suspicion that what are you trying to achieve? You know, so grant the media that, and grant the people that it's a real talking point, given the background and the history.
Yeah,
let's move it forward. So this uniform, what is it? What is the color? Do we have it? Did we showcase it at the meeting or at the symposium, or we are now going to decide what it should be?
So with regards to the presentation that I've sat in, for instance, there was one video clip that was shown in the minister's conference where the minister went to teach the students, and they appeared in their, there was a lab. I think they went to the lab on that day. It's also a basic school, and they were in black trousers and white shirts with a tie. And you see, I'm not a psychologist, but I somehow believe that your presentation may have an impact on even your how disciplined you are in terms of where even your learning environment. So the videos I've seen, the presentation that I was there, I think it was either blue black trousers and the white shirt. So that's what I'm saying that.
So the uniform will be a white shirt and black trousers for the gentlemen, and I'm sure it will be black skirt and white top for the ladies, like Accra High School, right?
Yeah. So like I'm saying, for the newly built schools, where the minister went there, that is the uniform that was showcased on. During the presentation. But you see, like I indicated...
No, just to clarify this. So does it mean that you said there are 10 of those schools which have been newly built, right? Does it mean they are all going to wear the same uniform, or each of the 10 will decide the uniform to wear?
So far as I am concerned, the minister spoke about the new uniforms for the model high schools. And of course, the expectation is that when you talk about a new school uniform, it's not going to be different because you are talking about a uniform. It's not going to be different. So the expectation is that the model schools will have that conformity.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now let's move to the infrastructure. So we understand that the infrastructure we have now can accommodate about 5-10 schools at one place. Is that correct? Even
sometimes, if you go to, for instance, the one at Jabin, for instance, is going to take care of all the junior high schools, because you see.
So no, they just want to understand. So it will take care of all the junior high schools in Jabin, so that all the junior high schools in Jabin would have been collapsed into this huge edifice. Is that the case?
Yes, that is the idea, because so that they will also be able to access communities that if you are decoupling these schools, you will not be able to provide each of the schools.
I see. How about access, geographic access? Because we say that the schools are scattered, so people sometimes walk long kilometers, 10 kilometers, etc., before they get to school in the morning and go back in the evening. If we are now centralizing the school at one venue, have we thought about geographic access? People in the hinterlands, where before we had schools, but now those schools have all been collapsed into one big one at a certain place. They will have to come from far and near. Have we thought about that?
Obviously, when you are citing a school, certainly all those assessments will be done. For instance, let me just take you a bit, give you an example of the Kwabena Day School, for instance, which happens to be a high school. It's been overly subscribed just because it was properly cited or located. And so a school like that, for instance, will not work in extreme, urban communities where you may have students walking extra miles to be able to access the school. But of course, if you come to my hometown, Domiabra, for instance, and you build a school in the center of the town, averagely, no student is going to walk, for instance, for even more than 10 minutes or 5 minutes to be able to access that school. But at the same time, if you do not provide such school, you are getting the Presbyterians, you are getting the Methodists, you are getting the Anglicans and the Adventists, the list can go on, having their independent schools, but with the student not having the right access to quality teaching and learning materials, which obviously reflects in their outcome and in the long run will have an impact on the socio-economic transformation. For instance, if you have, for instance, 11,000 junior high schools, it is difficult to provide laboratories for all the 11,000 junior high schools, to build new laboratories for them. But if you reduce these schools, particularly those which are very accessible within, say, less than 5 or 10 kilometer radius, and you are able to reduce these schools to, for instance, 4,000, it becomes easier for you as a government to provide a state-of-the-art facilities and infrastructure for all these schools and these students to also be able to access. So it is not a case that, in terms of the location, is just spread around the country. No, I mean in terms of proximity has also been taken into well consideration.
Yes, I get the point, but the real point I'm trying to get you to respond to is, for example, I walk 5 kilometers to the nearest JHS close to my house in a certain village. Now, because of this new policy or this new idea of collapsing all the junior high schools within the vicinity into a bigger one, now where the bigger one will be sited may not be close to my house. It may or may not. So it means that I will have to walk extra distance in getting to that school, where in the previous sense, I could have walked a shorter distance to my school. That's one. Number two, of course, you talk about the fact that not all these schools could have laboratories. Shouldn't we rather be investing in providing them laboratories and the facilities they need to be competitive as schools, rather than seeking to centralize education in this era of decentralization?
I don't know where this whole concept of centralization comes and how you define it. Because if you build school in Domiabra, where averagely the ordinary student can walk 5 minutes to access the school, I don't think that is centralization. My understanding of centralization is when, I mean, you only leave it at the top. For instance, I mean, everything is done in the central city or the central state, and then you ignore those at the urban and the peri-urban areas. That is not the conversation that we are having. And I indicated that we are also not saying that everywhere in Ghana we are going to put this. You put it at a place where it works. And you see, like I indicated, the context of every conversation or the history is very important. The history is that if we are a government and you have about 23,000, I mean, that is a hypothetical value because I don't have the figures right here with me. If you have about 23,000 junior high schools and you need to build a state-of-the-art laboratories for them, comparing 23,000, constructions of laboratories and finding a way, if, for instance, about 15,000 of them can work under this initiative or this innovation, and reducing these 15,000 to say 3,000, and getting all the right access for these children, which one would you rather choose? So it is not a case as though, that's why I even cited the Kwabenya A School, for instance. It's sited in the middle of the town where it becomes accessible to the majority of the people there. Kwabenya Day School will not also necessarily work in Basempe because in Basempe, people may have to travel a lot of distance. That's why when you asked earlier, I said that you have to consider, in terms of your assessment, even the proximity assessment. And it is even the more reason why it is not being done across every part of the country. So you look at that. I made an example of Jabin. Everybody in Jabin can be able to access a school maybe with centrally located. If you come to, for instance, my hometown, for instance, everybody should be able to access. But maybe you may go to, let's say, for instance, Kaswa and its environs. If you do that, it may not necessarily work, unless, of course, you're operating a boarding system, which you don't operate a boarding system at the basic schools. So we carefully, considered all these factors that you are raising before looking into that. And what it also means is that there are some schools that will be left that you still have to provide these amenities because those schools will not, work within the template that you have proposed.
Very well.
You understand?
I get it, but I think of course, you admit it's a big conversation we must have. So I throw a special invitation to you sometime next week. Come to the studio. Let's discuss this matter. But on other issues, education is big. On other issues, institutional. I beg you, institutional suppliers Association of Ghana. They are revealing that you still owe them some 130 million cedi despite the settlement of 26 million. We were happy when we saw that you had made. Government had paid them some 26 million. but they're saying that a huge part of the money still remains to be paid. Do we have any idea when government will release money for the payment of the remainder?
So with regards to the briefing that I have, of course, the last time they came to the ministry and picketed, I was there. I've been engaged in a lot of their meetings. I am aware that indeed the ministry owed them. I am aware that settlement had been made up to, I think the last supplies that they made or the last contract that they had with government was 2023. That part of 2023, up to part of 2023, that has been paid. I am also aware that the 2023, in terms of the arrears, have not been fully paid. But I am also equally aware that our last meeting, the minister instructed the Director of Finance to facilitate payment or outstanding payments for them. Of course, I will need to get further briefing in terms of the figures that has been put out there as to whether A amount or B amount. But of course, I acknowledge that there is some outstanding arrears that needed to be paid. I mean, just like government, at every point, government will always have arrears because you provide the services before you come for your money. So, but of course, I assure that I was in that meeting. I met them, the gentleman who just spoke. I met him where the minister directed the Director of Finance that he should make sure that whatever he has to do possible to make sure that allocations are made to them in terms of the outstanding arrears. So
very well.
I just have to follow up on that.
Very well. A final one. Recently the tablet thing was launched, where basically senior high schools were to get a tablet each and all of that. What's the status of that? Have we started the distribution of the tablets, or what's the status?
Yeah, in terms of the starting, like I indicated in our last conversation, I mentioned that right after the launch, 30 schools which already had the tablets even in their stock, the distribution started. But in terms of, the subsequent distribution, I will need to get proper briefing from the Free Assistance Secretariat in terms of their scheduling and update you accordingly. I do not have, the latest update on it because I wasn't aware that's what we are going to discuss, but I will find it for you in our subsequent discussion.
Very well. Thanks so much, Kwesi Kwarteng. Pleasure as always speaking to you. Eyewitness, thanks so much.